Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under Weekend Review. My name is Anthony McGuire and I'm joined by Paul Massey as we discuss Celtic 5, St Johnstone 0, Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden. Played less than 24 hours ago. Easter weekend. We've just found out coming on to air not long ago that Pope Francis has passed away, so may he rest in peace. The first non-European Pope in 1,000 years, Paul. I did not know that, but there you go. How has your long weekend been?
Yeah, 4 days. We'll just saying off air, weren't it? Like it's been essentially mostly eating, a little bit of drinking. Usually I've got those the other way around, but modest amount of drinking this time. And yeah, just quiet, just hanging with mainly my wife and dogs. Caught up with the in-laws on Saturday. But other than that, really relaxed, just taking advantage of the early autumnal pleasant weather we've been having here in WA. So yeah, long walks with the dogs down by the river, a bit of sunshine. Yeah, pleasant. And then yeah, short week because we've got another public holiday on Friday, and then I've actually taken Monday of next week off, and then we've both got the following Friday off. So I've got back-to-back 3-day weeks coming up. So can't really grumble, to be honest. Life's pretty good.
Yes, no, eating has been the name of the game, and it was beautiful weather all weekend, so can't really complain about that. And it looked like it was quite nice at Hampden yesterday as well. Just bringing a couple of the comments just quickly. Heavy vibes. He's saying, "Hail, hail, boys! Hail, hail to you, sir!" And regard to who's the snitch on tonight, gentlemen. Happy Easter Monday, and hail, 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 hail to you as well. Yeah, Paul, I mean, we may as well get into the game itself. Because Easter's Easter, it just feels like Christmas repeated 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, just eating and drinking, having family over and whatnot. So it's been good, but at the same time, it's just it's good to punctuate that with a bit of sport. And last night we managed to obviously watch Celtic do that. So unchanged lineup from the Kilmarnock game the week before. Obviously the mood music coming into this week was the off-field things with Adam Ida, apparently drunk in a pub somewhere. Those footballers, terrible, like, oh no, he's not the first, and he certainly won't be the last. So that was also a bit of good music during the week. But Brendan Rodgers playing a blinder and wrapping his arms around him, and I'm showing a bit of faith, keeping him in the starting lineup for Sunday. The pre-talk in the group chat was all, how many goals was it going to be? I don't think anybody saw anything different than us having a dominating victory, and that's not through just sheer arrogance, but just because of past performances. We would drop points to Aberdeen and then we scalped them in a cup competition a couple of weeks later. So we obviously had St Johnstone's number, but that obviously still going to do the business. But unchanged team, Paul. Anything to sort of make of that other than what I've just said, or was there anything interesting? Any real strong cases there for change, or do you kind of feel like we're sort of that's where we're at the moment?
I was a little bit surprised. Well, let's qualify that. If the Adam Ida extracurricular activity stuff wasn't around this week, I think there's a pretty good argument for him being dropped purely on performance last week. And we said it here. I didn't think he was up to scratch. Things didn't stick. It didn't really work for him. But yeah, you touched on it in your open comments in terms of Brendan Rodgers playing a blinder. He did in terms of how he defended him in the press. And then I think on the back of that, then actually starting him and utilising him a little bit better. Because it's not just the reason Adam Ida hasn't been playing as well as he could or getting the outcomes that he could, it isn't just down to his performance. It's down to how we've utilized them. And I feel like lots of the things that I've had a grumble about here over a number of weeks, but particularly last week, about Adam Ida, and over the last 2 or 3 weeks in terms of the service from the back line, all sort of were fixed in this game. And you saw the difference. You know, it was more than 1 or 2 things happening. Yeah, lots of players were on song. But yeah, I agree. Rodgers did well in the press defending Ida. It looks like they've handled it well in-house. Callum McGregor made some comments post-match as well about that, you know, put the lid on it and we move on. And clearly he decided to back him on field as well. And he got a reaction. And I thought Adam Ida really contributed. First half, obviously, particularly. Even that first 35 minutes or so when it wasn't quite clicking and going our way, his performance was much, much better. But yeah, prior to all of that happening, I think you could have made a pretty good case for dropping him out of the lineup and bringing back another on the wing and putting Maeda back through the middle. That probably the obvious one would have been bring Jota back and put Maeda through the middle. But yeah, I thought the manager just done really well there to sort of send a message both externally and internally, and it'll have done Adam Ida a world of good in terms of his confidence. And obviously, you know, he puts the icing on the cake by getting his goal. But I think his overall performance, let's say, particularly first half, was excellent, albeit we're not really getting a reward for it until that 12-minute burst when we basically took the game away from St Johnstone, and it was all over by that point.
Big fella paid us back with a goal. Yes, he did, and we will obviously touch on the goals as we go through, because there were plenty of them. 5 of them to be exact. Should have been 6 actually, because Ida really should have scored that chance in the second half. But I won't. I don't want to sort of take away from the fact that his performance was better. And I think Paul, you're absolutely right. I think in terms of how you utilize them, and the third goal, the one where he peels off the defender and plays it back to Callum McGregor. It was the second goal?
Yeah, and then he slips in. McGregor slips in Maeda, and obviously the defender has a night.
That for me is where you want to be utilizing Adam Ida. So obviously you've got 2 things there. You're one, basically trying to just draw defenders out of the space if they follow them out, just to try and create a bit of space, but also allows your midfield 3 to then run onto the ball and put them under pressure. And the second thing is obviously him between the sticks and delivering those crosses. And sometimes, this is where I admire James Forrest, because like he's very direct and whips in a good ball. And I have to say, Maeda's contributions from out wide were also very good when he did get into those sort of delivery areas as well. Like his final pass, final ball is a lot better than it used to be. So that's probably the one thing that he's really, he's taking his game to another level with that final sort of pass or finish or wherever he is on the park sort of thing. And he obviously comes away with a double and takes him to 34 goals in all competitions. So there's still a chance that he could maybe hit the big 4-0 before the end of the season.
6 games left, 6 goals to go. It's not. Not that big a stretch, really, the way he's been fighting.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, I didn't see the game on Saturday night, but apparently Aberdeen toiled horrendously against Hearts. And Hearts were a man down for pretty much most of the, for a good portion of the game. So, it'll be interesting to see if they can get themselves up for the cup final. But yeah, it could be a great day, but we will come to that in due course. It's 6 weeks away.
If they can't get themselves up for a cup final, what can they get themselves up for? But yeah, based on current form, there's a few weeks ago, but based on current form, you'd expect more of the same. But as you say, there's a bit of water under the bridge to go before then.
Well, sorry, I'm yawning. Apologies. I did the double header. I did the semi-final into the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. So
no spoilers. I'm going to watch the highlights there.
And then I was working today. So So I was like a young child having a split nap. So I had a 3-hour nap yesterday afternoon, and then I had about 3-4 hours this morning before going to work. So apologies if I'm, yawning and a little bit, not quite my usual chipper self. Long weekends to catch up with all of us. Mahesh, what's he saying? He's saying Celtics movement and ball speed eventually told. Yeah, I agree. I think the writing was on the wall early doors. It was just that final pass was probably just deserting us for that first 25 minutes or so. And we're inevitably, I think we're pinning St Johnstone back, so they just weren't really pressing as much as they did at McDermott Park, and that's a function of the park not being cut up and it not being a smaller ground, unlike Hampden. Paul, stats-wise, we ended up sort of around our usual sort of things. The first half, 70% possession. I think we ended up with first half, 6 shots on target, 4 off target to their 0, 5 corners to 0, and then somehow we still committed 4 fouls to their 0. But I guess part of that was that we just didn't let them breathe. As soon as we lost the ball, we just put them under all sorts of pressure. And I guess, that first 25 minutes, there was a couple of wee half chances in there. I know Cal McGregor had a bit of a sighter of a shot that went straight to the keeper. And it was another one. I try before we sort of get to the goals, but that was definitely the one that sticks in my mind as a half chance. Was that
early cross that sort of was, I think, pick out Ida, and it sort of, I think Maeda sort of headed against him and it dropped away. I think it was a couple of, there was a little bit of pressure around the box, but it was all coming mostly centrally, which was easily snuffed out. And to both yours and Mahesh's point, I think they were obviously bang up for it. They had their tails up. They had their game plan. Obviously, they didn't get the early goal like they got at home, but they put a power of work in early on, and then they really sort of flooded those central areas. Pressed late. They pressed us late, but and deep in their half. But they smothered and snuffed out most of the danger. But as the half,
Engels had that shot on the edge of the 18-yard box that was blocked. Yeah. That was threw themselves at that, and a couple others like that.
Yeah, like they were putting everything into it, bodies on the line and all that. But between a mixture of both physical and mental exertion, it's only 34 minutes, but they've had to be on it constantly. They barely get any respite because, as you say, the ball was coming straight back every time. A lot of time it was just being kind of hoiked clear. And then it was just a case of, 1 or 2, 3 men around the ball, win it back. And then it was, defense against attack for most of that first half. And eventually that pressure tells, right? They tire mentally and physically. They're not as quick to get out. They're not as quick to fall. And we just started moving the ball a bit faster and quicker, as in not just the speed we moved the ball at, but the number of touches we were taking was getting less as well. It was sort of a textbook Callum McGregor goal to open the scoring. Heavy involvement from Rio Hatate, who had as good a half as you're likely to see, I would say, from a midfielder. Hatate, as he's done in recent weeks, showed good composure on the ball, take his time, and then just dropped a little back heeler off to McGregor, who had time and the calmness of thought to sort of step in, move it, and then just basically pass it into the bottom corner, and it's a really good finish. And really, from that point onwards, you're never really looking back.
It came from their goal kick, didn't it? That's how that goal started, wasn't it? Was it that one? Because that was the one that the defender duffs the goal kick, and then AJ gets there first, wins the header.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Yeah,
and it breaks to Hatate, and then he does his little trick and then back heels it, and then that obviously brings in McGregor for the shot. But again, you're looking at, if you're looking from a St Johnstone point of view, you're probably a bit slack getting out to try and block that. And I mean, there's a little bit of, you're expecting maybe Hatate to have the shot, and he's obviously done the dummy and the back heel and maybe just sort of caught them off guard a little bit. But great time to take the touch and then look up and pick his spot. It did seem like he had a fair bit of time, but good players make it look easy, I suppose.
The other thing that sort of the other thing that kind of created the space for him to pass it in is that the other centre back takes a step to the right because he's concerned about a ball being tucked in behind him with Maeda coming in. Obviously, yes, McGregor has been great centrally, but your absolute biggest concern is probably Daizen Maeda. So he's concerned to split. Does he? There's probably enough in the middle of the box, so he sort of takes one step out just so that he thinks, if the ball gets slid in behind me, I've got more chance of covering across. And that extra step just opens up that piece of the goal for, between him, the post, and the keeper. And after that, McGregor's got a clear sort of sighter in and just sort of passes it, bends it into the bottom corner. It's a really clean finish. But yeah, good play all around from us. As you say, not the best from them. And yeah, like a little bit of couple of mistakes, like a poor clearance, and then obviously not as quick to react, and AJ wants it more and gets in there, and then after that they're just sleeping a little bit and stand off us just a little bit too much, and then they get punished.
May as well get into the second goal. Daizen Maeda 3 minutes later, so we have this flurry for about 10 minutes, 11 minutes, which just basically kills the tie. And Michael Stewart's like, one goal, it was like 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals, and then Rory Anthony was like, that's it, it's game over. It's like it's damage limitation stuff in the second half. So I'm having a shocker here, but this was the goal is this the one that Edith plays in? Callum McGregor?
Yeah. So it starts. CCV picks it up just inside their half.
Yes.
And I've been heavily critical of his willingness to pass the ball forward and play vertical passes through the lines. And I thought maybe he's been tuning into Celtic Down Under or maybe someone else in the coaching team has, because I thought he played lots. There was still the odd little knockoff to McGregor as he fell deeper, but I thought McGregor started
a lot more direct.
Started a lot. I think McGregor started higher up the pitch, which means CCV and Scales, and maybe Scales being in the team because he's more willingness to step out and play vertical passes. So there's not as much pressure or requirement on Cameron Carter-Vickers to do it. But when he was asked to do it, he was much happier and more comfortable. He can do it. He just hasn't seemed to want to, or that's not been the instruction or encouragement. So yeah, he plays a great straight up the pitch through the lines pass. Ida steps out of the box and he's probably just kind of past the D. He shields it, which he'd done all half up until that point. Last week I was critical because he was looking to little flicks and tricks and sort of one touch knockoffs, and they weren't connecting, and the play was breaking down, and he was cutting a bit of a frustrated and forlorn figure. And this week he just took an extra touch. He took a touch to hold it in, and then he took a touch to knock it off. And we've always got players available, particularly with Taylor joining in inverted and the other midfielders. There's always players around for him to knock the ball off, and it made total sense for him to take a touch and then look for somebody else, and that's what he did. And it was a skipper coming in, and yeah, I think a touch from McGregor to get it out of his feet, and then lovely little pass in the inside channel. Defender's a bit unlucky. He slips. He sort of gets a semi touch, and then the next one is for him agonizingly just out of reach, and he can't get his toe in it. Makes its way through to Maeda, and we all know what's going to happen after that. He's in on goal, and he just passes it beyond the keeper, and yeah, 2-0, and really simple goal, but lovely sort of build up play and well worked. And then yeah, you get the main man in on it, and it's only going to be one outcome from there.
Yeah, I just like the fluidity of it because everyone was on their stride, sort of getting to the ball. So it just looked like a beautiful goal, and it was well finished because Maeda of old would have drilled that straight at the keeper or blasted it over the bar, but he had the composure just to sort of look up and just sort of curl it as cool as you like into the bottom left hand corner. So yeah, that made it 2-0 in quick order, and I think by that point St Johnstone were probably reeling. And yeah, we were on the ascendancy, and it was like, well, this was just, like I said, it was just waiting for us to click. And once that final pass, that final ball sort of was in the right position, then all of a sudden it was the floodgates sort of opened. And again, I think what were we? We were probably another 3 minutes before the next goal. Sorry, tell a lie. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. 9 minutes. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Yep. This was Adam Ida. So this one was the Liam Stales pass, which I thought was chef's kiss. But that was like, as far as your centre halves playing, balls that sort of cut teams open, that goes up there. And this season has been one of the best, because probably our centre halves probably haven't done it enough. And I guess it just shows they are capable. And again, second goal, as you say, Carter Richards has played a forward pass in Ida, and that's obviously a much easier pass to play. But again, it brings in your centre forward and plays to Ida's strengths when he knows what he's doing. And this time, Stales on his left foot, slide rule pass, gets it in, and Hatate absolutely waits that pass, absolutely perfection, cut back, and Ida literally just has to touch it into the back of the net. Still a good finish, but again, Hatate sort of weighted it perfectly for him. But again, just a very simple goal. Football can be simple. I say this on the podcast several times throughout the season. Football can be a simple game sometimes, but it just literally was like a couple of passes. At this point, St Johnstone were at 6s and 7s. Like they trying to track runners and leaving gaps all over the place. And I guess that's the threat of having made out wide. You're worried about him. And then you sort of ignore the immediate threat of Hatate making that run. And like I said, that sort of underlapping run was crucial. A couple of our goals, but just like I said, beautiful, beautiful goals to see. And at 3-0, you're thinking, oh, well, that's, game, set, match. But 2 minutes later, Daizen Maeda decides to make it 4. And again, it was a cheeky finish because he sort of didn't really have much backlift to his shot. But, so the ball comes out to him and has about 3 defenders around him, but somehow still manages to sort of jink it into the back of the net. And keeper probably unsighted, having, a sea of legs in front of him. But anything with those last 2 goals, Paul, that you wanted to sort of touch on?
Yeah, I think the pass from Scales for the third goal is just eye of a needle stuff. Superbly weighted. Hatate's a mile onside. Like, he's running really deep as they're sort of starting to think about stepping up. And then after that, he gets his head up, and he literally Ida can't miss. By the time it arrives at him, it's beyond the keeper. He's got to tap in. He's 1.5 yards, 2 yards out. But he's done the right thing. He's where I'm always saying he should be. He's between the posts, around the penalty, between the penalty spot and the goal line. And he's followed it in, kept himself onside. Ball's probably played square or back in the end, so he's always going to be onside. But he's got himself in the position, and then obviously tucked it away from there. Really good goal, great for his confidence. Probably what he deserved in terms of his work and effort in the first half. Hatate superb again. And then Hatate's involved in the 4th goal too. So, he picks the ball up outside the box and he goes on a bit of a dribble. He's composed. He takes his time. There's bodies everywhere, but he finds Maeda. But then he continues his run in. And I was a bit surprised I thought this goal was going to get chopped off, or at least revisited with VAR, because Hatate ends up, and I think I might be wrong in this, but he looks to be in an offside position when Maeda hits the finish, and he stood right in the middle of the goal. So, I thought, is he going to get pinged for impeding the keeper? And there was definitely some chit, the usual chit chat. The referee had the old finger in the ear. But no, surprisingly, at least, I thought it was allowed to stand. And to be honest, I didn't think the on-field referee had a great game, but in terms of how VAR was used, I think there was 2 big calls. I think they got them both right. Now we might have a debate on at least one of those. I know there was plenty in the group chat last night. You were a bit quiet, so I don't know. I've
been mulling my decision on that one. I've sort of been weighing up all the relative discussion on that one. So I keep my powder dry, because otherwise, what's the point coming on here if we just air it all out in a group chat last night? So 4-0 at half time, and there was 1 minute of injury time, which yeah. Anyway, so that was it. The half was over. Just to bring in some of the comments just very quickly. 420 somewhere. Anthony Pablo, hail to you, sir. Who's the snitch saying Antonio and Pablo with the beards? Yeah, okay, I'll go with that. Dave, our man, he's behind the bar somewhere tonight, so he can't be with us, but he's in the chat. Brian Clough said football is a simple game played by idiots. Yeah, I would believe that's something that Brian Clough would probably say, but what does that make a couple of guys on the podcast? What does that make us? Heavy Vibes saying that the whole team was on it. AJ had a great game. Yeah, I agree. I think he had one of his best games for quite a while. And what I liked was that he actually modified his game depending on who the winger was in front of him. So first half, he kind of let Forrest have the space and was just sort of inverting a bit like what Taylor does on the left. But then in the second half, when Kuhn was there, he was providing that underlap or overlap, and he was really bombing on and getting forward and really getting part of the action, and obviously contributes for the fifth goal, which we will get to in a little bit. But yeah, no, I really thought he had a good game, and he just set the tone, and it was winning tackles and headers and getting in there. Who's the snitch? Vodka in there. No, this is water. I know, not a heavy weekend for the drink, it has to be said. I think I've had a bottle of wine across the whole weekend. I've really not been drinking much. It's just been eating too much. I had a lamb roast yesterday. Anyway, I'm already into it. I'll make myself feel sick. But yeah, I've had a gastronomical plenty of cooking over the weekend, so anyway, I'll leave it at that. Paul, halftime, St Johnstone ring the changes. They drag the two forwards. Nicky Clark comes off, and Adama Sidibea. I thought he was absolutely woeful. I don't know where they got him from, but he was rubbish. He couldn't trap a bag of wet cement. So I wasn't overly thrilled with them. Every time they tried to play the ball up to them, they just came straight back, and a lot of that was done at Celtic. But I kind of feel like they didn't really do themselves many favours either. So obviously trying some fresh legs into the team. Barry Douglas was the one that took the crap goal kick that led to the first goal as well. So run the changes there, but obviously didn't really make much of a difference, did it? Really? Well, it's obviously steadied the ship a little bit, but that was probably about it.
Yeah, look, I think it's 4-0. You know, we've seen this before. You know, you don't exactly see the guys come flying out the trap second half and they freshen it up. So yeah, it's there is a period where it's maybe a bit more of a, at least in the moment, a contest. So, but yeah, there wasn't much of a significant change. They still struggled to get a hold of the ball, albeit they did get some play deeper higher up the pitch, which is where the almost goal came from.
Oh yes, let's talk about that. Miss Mackenzie Kirk, he came off the bench. He was the one who did it.
He did, and what I hated was, like if you're gonna get scalped in a cup semi-final, if you're a striker, it's nice to walk away with a beautiful goal, and he didn't even get the benefit of that. And to be honest, it's perfect. Absolutely, as I said earlier, that VAR got the decisions right as far as I'm concerned, or indicated to the referee that there was something to double check. And for me, the biggest thing here is, why is the ref missing that? It's right under his nose. It was only two hands. It was only a two-handed shove. Like it's you can see that goes down a little bit easily, but he's got two hands in the back and he's moving forward to meet the ball at the same time he gets shoved. So it's not going to. It doesn't take much to tip somebody over. It's a free kick all day long. It's like I say, it should have been. This is why I say the on-field ref didn't have a great game, because he missed quite a lot in that was pretty straightforward. That being probably the biggest one. But yeah, it's a great hit by Kirk, and I think on Celtic TV, I think Peter Grant said you could have had two goalkeepers in there and you still wouldn't have saved it. It was a cracking strike, but yeah, sadly for St Johnstone.
The other one, but just before that, prior to that, was Sinisala's save from the offside. Yeah, that was actually a really good reflex save because that sort of came at him. So he obviously didn't know he was offside, so he pulled the save. But yeah, he couldn't do much about the shot because that was travelling and had a bit of dip on it. So fair play, but yes, no, again, Paul, I agree. I don't know how the referee can miss a two-handed push, and Adam just sort of remonstrated. I kind of feel that maybe we sort of didn't play the whistle. Like there's a bit of a gap between Adam Ida losing the ball and then our defenders maybe try to come out and sort of put him under a bit of pressure. So I kind of feel like maybe we didn't quite play the whistle on that one as well as we probably could have. But the end result was, it was pulled back with VAR, and the goal was disallowed. So unfortunately for them, but at the same time, I had Mikey Stewart on commentary contorting himself worse than a synchronized diver trying to like wigwam. Is it a foul? Is it not a foul? Should it be a goal? Should it not be a goal? It's like a foul's a foul, Michael. Like it's a two-handed push. It's like is as blatant and as obvious as you want it to be. Like as much as you want it to be a goal because it was a great strike, like it was a foul in the build-up. But he was like, he was making an absolute meal of it last night. I tell you what, they must
have edited the highlights better then, because I watched them before we came on air, and he said, "Oh, yeah, it's a two-handed shove. It is, it's going to get chopped off." So he obviously said that at some point afterwards, and then they managed to snip that for
Paul, he oscillated from being a goal to not being a goal about 3 or 4 times. Like he was doing my head in. I was just like, mate, just shut up. Like you're killing it. But anyway, but like I said, the right decision was it came at the right decision in the end. So that was that. We made our triple substitution. So while they're bringing on some players, we bring on McCown, Kuhn, and Jota. There are reinforcements in place of Engels, Forrest, and Adam Ida. And then literally 3 minutes later, we score our...
Well, we should probably speak about the penalty before that, because obviously...
Sorry, that was right. That was Forrest last thing before the subs. That's right. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, sorry. Yep. No, you're right. So Forrest last play of the game before he got taken off was he managed to sort of jink in amongst a couple of St Johnstone defenders, seemingly pulled down or knocked over in the box. Penalty given after the referee took a fair while to actually award it. He did think about it. He's awarded it, but then when you actually look at where the referee was when he did award it, he definitely didn't have a great view of it. He was kind of behind everybody.
And he's on the other side of Forrest, so you can't see what he wants to be either looking right down it or through it, or from the other end, or on the other side, because then he can see at least if he's got more chance of seeing if there's contact from the defender. He's on Forrest's side, so he can guess, which is what he did, and he took a long time to guess, and maybe the fact that 2 or 3 of them had a crack at trying to bring him down was enough for him to go, we'll give him it. Why not? But I'm not sure. We'll get to your point in a minute. Your view on it in a minute. But in real time, I didn't think it was a penalty. When it was given, I thought it was a soft call. And the more I looked at it, the more I kind of had really no expectation that it wouldn't be overturned. The most you can say for about, there's probably a foul outside the box. There's a bit of a pull in a clip outside of the box. And fair play to James Forrest, he stays on his feet because he's got an opportunity to get inside the box. After that, there's very little contact, and he feels a slight brush and he goes down, and I'm not having it. There was a big argument on the group chat yesterday that any contact at that pace, it's a penalty, not a chance. I always look at how would I feel if that was given against us, and I'd be absolutely fuming if that was given against us and if it was upheld against us. So, nah. The defender's gone hip to hip. There's barely any contact. Forrest has felt it, and he's gone down. And that's the modern game, but you're not getting a penalty for that. I'd be absolutely fuming, as I say, if that was given against us. So, nah, right call as far as I'm concerned. And we're not hard done to it 4-0 up. So, yeah, that's my view. And you won't hear me changing my mind.
Who's the snitch? Probably the comment of the night so far. See if you now do it. He can't see the forest for the trees. That was the referee, probably, or the tangle of legs and arms and whatnot. Look, there's a couple of things here, right? So the initial foul probably was outside the box, and that's probably put James Forrest slightly off balance with that challenge. That was outside the box, right? So could you blow him for a free kick for that? Maybe. Then the next guy slides in, tries to take him out, misses, doesn't get him. And then the third guy, apologies for not knowing the names of the St Johnstone defenders here, but, lack of sleep, whatever. Third guy comes across with his arm. Does he catch him on the face? Yeah, probably. With enough force to bring him down the way James Forrest went down? Probably not. Was James Forrest a little bit off balance from the initial challenge, which was outside the box? Probably. So it's all these probablys that probably don't add up to a penalty, as it were. And I think the referee's just gone with the body language. To be honest, I think James Forrest made it look very convincing. I think if you're going to, I mean, the guy's got experience. I mean, I'm not saying he's a diver, but I'm saying he made it look convincing. To the naked eye first time around, I went, oh, that's a penalty. And then when I looked it back, I went, there's not really a lot of contact there, so I can see how that's been overturned.
I think I think if it was going to get given, it would have been for the slide in. If that slide in makes any kind of contact, then and he goes down like he does.
He missed him.
But he missed him. Yeah, exactly. And then for me, the arm comes across, but the main contact the first contact that Forrest Field is basically hip to hip. And I'm not having the two guys, he's a big centre back versus a smaller winger. But two guys, and it's not like he cut across him and barged right into him. He just sort of ran up alongside him and they went hip to hip. And yeah, the arm comes across, but as soon as he feels the hip contact, he's on his way down. So yeah, I'm not nothing against Forrest. That's a modern game. It has been for a couple of decades. And he was probably getting squeezed out, so there probably wasn't an opportunity to score. But he rides a much harsher challenge on the outside of the box because he thinks he's still got a chance to get in and get a shot away and maybe score. And then he has a much softer challenge inside the box, and he thinks, "Oh, I might get something for this," and he goes down. So, yeah.
And the other part of it is Forrest is of an year of pre-VAR, so in pre-VAR that would have been a penalty because he would have won it. So you know what I mean. So he's of that era where whatever. But yeah, probably not for me. And I understand why people have views that yes, it should have been a penalty and should VAR got involved and overturned it. Is it clear and obvious? Blah blah blah. But I think if that was given against you, you'd feel stiff.
Yeah, a lot in our group chat were giving it the clear and obvious error chat, and I know this sort of rears its head, but for me that's a bit of a misnomer. Did they get it right or not? They didn't. They fixed it. They ended up at the right decision. Move on. If it's not a penalty, it's not a penalty. I think that's what I said in the group chat last night, and I fundamentally do not think that's a penalty. If that's a penalty, you're getting penalties 3 or 4 times a game. We've already gone far too far down the track of soft penalties for barely any contact. We don't need to make it worse.
Well, see, it's an interesting comment here, and this is what I was thinking as well, is there's a balancing act because the St Johnstone goal should have stood. But had VAR not been involved, then the St Johnstone goal would have stood and we would have got a penalty. So therefore, 2 wrong decisions would have cancelled each other out. You know what I mean? So the law of averages is if you've got a referee who's just not that good and they've got no inherent bias, then it should even itself out to a certain degree, maybe not within the same game, but over the course of a season. But it was just interesting that there was 2 decisions that one each to win it against either team. But ultimately, the stakes for us were 0 anyway because we were 4-0 up at that point, so it didn't really matter. But that was obviously Forrest's last play of the day, and that now leaves him with 6 games left to score a goal to keep his ridiculous records of scoring in every season he's played in going. So
that would match McStay, I think. McStay did 16 seasons in a row, and then I missed the guy's name, but there's a guy from way back did 18 seasons in a row. So, but yeah, you'd like to think you'll get one somewhere along the way between now and the end of the season. We didn't really touch on this group chat because it just blew up on whether it was a penalty or not. But do you think Forrest would have been handed the ball if if it was decided it would stay.
I don't think he would have got it yesterday, but I think as it gets closer to the end of the season, like before the cup final, if he's on as a penalty, I think they'll give it to him.
See, I think they would have given him because he looked like he was a bit disappointed when he came off. And he was chatting to one of the guys on the bench. I can't remember who it was. Maybe Bain and somebody else.
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, well,
he looked a bit. He didn't look annoyed, but he looked a wee bit disappointed. And I feel like because in the commentary on the Celtic TV, they said, "Oh, Adam Ida's grabbed the ball," and I was like, "Well, Ida won't take it. Engels is on the pitch." So, and then they sort of chatted away and said, "Oh, maybe he's just protecting because he stood around the penalty spot apparently, so that they don't do that thing of cutting it up and making a mess of it." Yeah. So yeah, I think Big Ida was just on sort of protection duty. But yeah, I think if it had stood, I think he probably would have handed it to James Forrest, and I don't know if that makes it better or worse. Because you could see him being handed a penalty and then maybe missing it, right? So
I think isn't the stat that he scored in every league campaign? So like, it's a league goal every season. So I mean, would that actually technically count? I mean, how technical are we getting here? So
I thought I wasn't aware it was illegal, but
Rory, whatever his face is on Premier Sports said it was league goals, but I would need to double check that. I don't know if it's for certain, but anyway, we'll probably get a little bit digressing slightly, but anyway,
technical.
He still has 6 weeks to go. Well, five league games and a cup game to go. So yeah, 3 minutes later, Jota with probably the sexiest finish this year. I mean, I've watched this goal back about 6 times, and I still can't really see how he slipped that past the goalkeeper from that acute angle. Keeper getting beat, he's near post. Terrible, but like you wouldn't be expecting it. But yeah, it was some finish. I mean, the ball from AJ was, it was just perfectly set up for him, but he had to make some amount of ground up as the ball was traveling because he was well onside, but like he's just gone from like the edge of the 18-yard box to the byline in no time. But just the finesse and the touch on that, just to pinpoint it into the back of the net, I was like, that's special, and that's the sort of Jota stuff that you love to see.
Yeah, like it's absolutely class. I think the finish is so good that a lot has been sort of not taken away, but there hasn't been much comment on the ball from AJ. It's like a no-look cross. He doesn't even lift his head. He just gets it pushed across to him. I think Kuhn turns back and plays it across to him, and he's like half on the turn, and he just plays it into an area. But and to be honest, it doesn't really matter if Jota is on the pitch or Maeda, because they're both sort of brilliant at ghosting in on that back post and finishing. But the quality of finish is incredible. He's only on the pitch 4 minutes at this point. Like, he's literally just come off the bench. Came on at 63 minutes, at 67 minutes, it ends up in the back of the net. So he's not even fully up to speed. And then he's, as you say, made up a phenomenal amount of ground. And yeah, I'm still at a bit of a loss as to how he's actually found the gap. But it's a great finish. Just quality of touch is great. And another little snippet of what we can hopefully look forward to more of next season, when he's got a full preseason under his belt and he's back into it.
This was the stat that came up as well last night. That's now, I've got 7 players on 10 goals or more. It is incredible. We're getting goals from everywhere. But so that's McGregor, Ida, Maeda, Kyogo, presumably. So that's 4.
Yeah. Engels.
Engels. That's 5. Kuhn.
Hatate.
Kuhn and Hatate. Yeah.
Kuhn and Hatate.
Not bad. And there's every likelihood if Jota keeps it up, he could maybe get there before the end of the season as well.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's good when you're not having to rely on somebody. And I guess, that's the thing, is that, we haven't missed Kyogo because we were spreading the goals around before he left. Anyway. Old man's calling in from Bali. Gee, Dad, I thought you'd just be like, on your holiday, but here you are listening to us. That's very nice of you.
He's obviously had a few bintangs as well. If he's thinking we're both looking good. So.
Well, he was ragging on my brother all week to find a pub in balloted who was watching the game, who was screening the game last night. So that was my brother's mission all week. So anyway, so they found one. So all good. I was yet to watch a game with people around that we actually win. Every time I sit in my lonesome, like we absolutely batter teams, but like as soon as I like try and get people together, it's disaster. So maybe I just need to sit in my lonesome for the next 5-6 weeks. Anyway, where are we at? We've got 15 minutes to go, Paul. We've got Dundee United away at Tannadice on the weekends. That is going to be the game that will hopefully seal the title. That is a lovely 7:30 kickoff, if I'm not mistaken, in Perth, WA time, which is fantastic. Do you think it will be wrapped up this weekend?
I do. Yeah, I do. We only need a point, right? So, yeah, I think the disappointment of the result in Perth, and therefore taking away the opportunity to win it at home, and then the bounce back in the Kelly performance and then the performance last night, you would now expect us to kind of keep this momentum going till the end of the season, or at least through to the derby, and then we might have a fair amount. We might have a fair amount of squad rotation between then and the cup final, which would make total sense, right? You'd probably use your squad over those 3 remaining league games, get some players who might be needed around the cup final to play start a few games and other bits and pieces, protect your absolute best players. But yeah, you'd like to think that we will keep this momentum up through the United game to seal the league, and then we owe that lot at the very least a beating, but we'd all like to see an actual convincing performance and result against them, because it's been poor against them for the last little while. Not that in the grand scheme of things it's going to make any odds, as they finish the season with a zip and we finish the season hopefully with all 3 trophies and a really good Champions League campaign. But yeah, despite that, you don't want poor performances against them, and you'd like to see us go out on a high and win that last derby, win it at least, and hopefully convincingly.
Well, it's interesting because part of Brendan Rodgers' post-match on Premier Sports, he was saying that, now that we're through to the cup final, we'll set some targets around the last 5 league games of the season. So, you think that, like you say, play the next couple of games, get a good couple of wins, and then have an opportunity to rotate some players through, maybe even look to give players maybe a week off. Like, maybe say Cal Madrid to take a week's holiday now. Because they're not going to have as much of a turnaround time with Champions League qualifiers and having hit the ground running for the start of next season. So, maybe you take that opportunity and do that. But like I said, I think hopefully we will we'll definitely get the job done this weekend, and then we can sort of celebrate. Not expecting that awful lot to give us a guard of honor, but
you wouldn't.
Not that I would want one for them anyway. But
you wouldn't. And we wanted to do that. So for them, not that it's likely to ever be an issue anytime soon again. But you never know. I think the targets they'll be setting will be, they might be around a little bit of squad rotation, but I think he'll have a points target in mind. He's probably going to have a goals target in mind. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got Maeda having 40 goals on his radar. Yeah. Not as a be all and end all, but he'll be G'ing up the squad. Getting James a goal will definitely be in the radar, at least in the dressing room. They probably won't speak about it publicly, but yeah, they'll be clear. Obviously the first 2 are, beat them and win the league. But beyond that, he has to keep momentum till all the way to the cup final. So he will put other little markers in between. But yeah, the squad's in a good place at the minute. Just a bit of a chat about it in the comments. And I'm kind of a bit confused by it, a bit baffled by it, as well as the lack of minutes for Paulo Bernardo. I feel like we should be definitely trying to get more minutes in his legs. Yeah, so potentially, I think he's a fantastic.
He got 20 minutes on the weekend. He came on at the 70-minute mark. I mean, I'll rate him, and I think maybe this is a case they're just trying to build him back up gradually. Hopefully, that's just all it is.
Potentially, and I certainly hope so, because as good as McCowan has been in stepping up this season, I think Paulo Bernardo is a far superior player, and and certainly with a much higher potential ceiling. And he's a player that we should be trying to get back in and around the first team squad, because there's no doubt that there's going to be potentially some rotation through that midfield in the next, if not this summer, then certainly over the next couple of windows. And he's a player that you'd want to be building back up and eventually probably stepping in as a first pick at some point. So you'd like to see him play. We've all been critical of Scales at various points. I think he's definitely steadied the ship in terms of him coming back in. He's dominating in the air. He's probably the best header of a ball in both boxes that we've got. His distribution was really good yesterday. He had a few stray passes in the previous game, but give him a pass for that. He'd have been a bit rusty. He's not played a lot of football in recent weeks. There's definitely still question marks over him in terms of the ball over the top and him being turned. But when it's all in front of him, he's an excellent stopper, and he's added in distribution, and he's a threat in their box, which nobody else really is from set pieces. So I think he'll retain his place probably for the rest of the season, unless something goes drastically wrong.
I think it's definitely it seems to be a horses for courses type selection, because I think in Scotland he's suited to him, because, like you say, very, very few teams try and play the ball over the top against us. But in Europe, maybe Trusty's the better. Their option, he's quicker, a bit more athletic, not having to square up against a 6'4" brute centre forward that we tend to come up against in the Scottish Premiership. So it's a bit of a horses for courses type selection. But no, I have to say, I thought he played really well. And a couple of times when we did have to clear our lines, he was the one that seemed to be getting on the end of things and sort of getting a head on it or getting a foot on it. So definitely, from that point of view, can't fault him there. And cut the odd stray pass, but again, willing to carry the ball. And like you say, that pass for that goal was good. So you can't really sort of begrudge that. May as well do man of the match now, Paul. I think I know you think in the group chat, but you said Rio Atati. So tell me why.
Yeah, so for me, I don't think there was a poor performance in the lineup, to be honest. Certainly in terms of the starting 11, and obviously some of the subs imposed themselves more than others, particularly Jota. But you could have made a case for quite a few players as man of the match. I think Callum McGregor got it actually, he would have. He definitely, I think, ran Rio really close. Obviously, he's got two crucial involvements. Early in the piece, he scores the opener, and he slides the pass in for Maera's opener, the second. But I thought Hatate was excellent again. Like, he's really coming on to a bit of form, composure, technically good, willing to hold on to the ball a bit longer if he needs to, but they're releasing it at the right point. And bringing others into play. 3 assists in the first half, and he was everywhere. He was back picking the ball up off the toes of the centre backs at some points, and then he was the furthest man forward and the highest in the press as well. Really coming on a game at the right time of the season. Now, if you were cynical, you might be saying, well, he's just gearing up for a move in the summer, but if that takes, he's probably due one. I think he's, if he wants to stay great and if he's going to play at that level, he's an asset. But I feel like, obviously, he was a late starter through the university system in Japan. So by the time he came to us, he was already sort of 24, I think.
Yeah.
And we've had him for, I think, 3 seasons or nearly that, maybe 3.5. So his next move will be probably his one big move to get a payday and to go to a big league and put himself in that kind of level. So as I say, you could be cynical. He's really coming on a game, and if that's the right time for him to move, fair enough. But yeah, I think he was just shading it from the skipper. And yeah, lots of other good players, but he was my man of the match, clearly Rio Hatate.
You've convinced me. I was going to say Cal McGregor, but you've swayed me. It's interesting though, because I think Hatate does benefit from better conditions, like better weather, better parks. So I think there's a bit of that to him. I'm saying he's a fair weather player, but I do think that he benefits from when conditions are a little bit more palatable. So, I think there's maybe a bit of a thing that as the weather's starting to improve in Scotland, that his performances have turned a bit of a corner. I would say he was terrible, but definitely he had a little bit of a slump there at some point in the season. So, but no, all the assists and like I said, he just seemed to be popping up all over the place, and really, because he was sort of in that left wing a fair bit and interchanging really well. And I know we haven't really spoken about him, but Greg Taylor had a good game as well. And again, he's come back from the cold, and we've apparently offered him more money, so he might end up staying. Is it about the money or is it about the game time? I suppose time will tell. But he's just got a new baby, so maybe he does want to stay in Glasgow. You never know.
Well, I think there's a few things with Greg Taylor, and you're right, he did have another good performance. When he's asked to play the inverted sort of fullback, basically an extra midfielder, this comment from Strange Love the Doctor is spot on. Rio was the man of the match, beating heart of the team performance, never stopped moving, always in control, showed skill, industry, intelligence for the entire match, just like the team. I think he's spot on, and my rationale as well. But going back to Taylor, I think I said this probably in the group chat and elsewhere. I think when he's asked to play that midfield role and we're going to dominate possession, he's absolutely excellent at that. I think, I don't think many people would argue that he picks up good positions, his movement's good, his ability to deliver crosses is great, and his game awareness is also excellent, and he can pass. I think he was a midfielder in his younger days, and his passing is excellent. The issue with Taylor is that he's not that good at defending in the left back position, which is his natural or his given
primary role in the team.
Yeah, primary role when we're asked to defend. But luckily in Scotland, a lot of time we aren't asked to defend, and he's got the ability and flexibility to step in. Don't know if anyone saw this. I'm sure some of the viewers did. I couldn't, a few did, but there was an interesting question asked in the pre-match press conference about Kieran Tierney. Quite a bit of chat about Kieran Tierney in that pre-match press conference, and would it take? I think he was asked the question: would it take some adjustment for KT to get used to playing that inverted fullback position? And Rodgers basically went, "Well, you play people to their strengths. That's not really his game. He's got a lot of other attributes." And he basically was saying, like, as we know, he didn't say it outright, but we know Tierney's an old style, up and down the flanks, left back that gets, provides width and stuff. And he said, he actually joked, he said, "I think our wingers are a bit worried because he's been playing left wing, right wing for Arsenal, and maybe they'll be challenging them." So I think he basically, and he didn't quite say it's horses for courses, but I think that was basically the insinuation. Now, we've talked a lot about this before, is if you could handpick the games you play KT for him, you just play him in the Champions League games and the derbies, and you'd rest him at other points. But the problem with injuries and CCV suffered a bit like this, and KT could again, we obviously hope not, is that sometimes you lose your players for the best position. So again, I said elsewhere, I'm not against retaining Taylor, and he's probably worthy of 15-20 grand a week, which I think is where we're kind of getting to and what he kind of wants to get to. And at 27, it's his last big contract, and Rodgers mentioned that as well. So I think he's entitled, and Rodgers said he's entitled to hold out for what he thinks he's worth. I think he could be a brilliant utility player. I don't really want him to be our backup left back, because I think that we will need the backup left back quite a bit. I'm still an advocate for getting a left back out of somebody else's academy, like we did with Alex Valle. Obviously, he didn't hang around that much, but if we can grab somebody like that can ultimately be mentored by KT and ultimately replace KT for a few years, then I think that's the ideal. But I think you need a player And a kind of character like Greg Taylor. He's a massive part of the dressing room, and that was mentioned by Rodgers again, and we've known that before. He's a big part of the camaraderie in that dressing room, and you can't keep people around just for that. But I do think he adds a lot, and I think there's a case for keeping Taylor to be a sort of horses for courses rotated player.
I think there was actually a thing I was reading literally before we just came on. I think Vae's got a £5 million move to Borussia Dortmund, I think.
They're looking at him, but apparently Barca are still considering whether they keep him because they're not completely settled on left back position either. So
£5 million. I mean, that seems like a bit of a steal. I'd have thought. Anyway, we'll see. Time will tell. So the Greg Taylor thing, we will watch the space. But he's the best not left back that we've got, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But we will table that discussion for another day. We'll see what happens with the contract talks over the next couple of weeks. Paul, we are at the hour mark, so you know what time it is. It's time for some recommendations. But before you fire away, I'm just trying to say, please like and subscribe to the episode. It helps other like-minded Celts find us online. The little like button on YouTube, please hit that. If you want to leave a comment, please leave a comment. I read every comment. I'm always curious to see what people think and say. But the chat has been lively tonight, which has been great. Obviously, everyone relaxing on their Easter holidays. So fantastic. And so glad you could be with us live. Paul, recommendations, what have we got?
Yep, album of the week recommendation is a guy called Craig Finn. Some people may or may not be aware of Craig Finn. You're more likely to recognize the band The Hold Steady, of which he is the lead singer and predominant songwriter. He every so often ducks off and does some solo material, and he released his latest solo album called Always Been in the last couple of weeks. So I've been getting my lug holes around that. And if you like The Hold Steady, then I'm pretty confident that you'll like Craig Finn's new album Always Been. So that's my album recommendation of the week.
Following on the back of last year's recommendation of the Great British Bake Off, I have fallen into the rabbit hole of watching Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, which I know I'm probably the only Celtic man on a podcast mentioning Gordon Ramsay, but I just find it utterly part fascinating, part horrified by like what he finds in people's industrial kitchens, like haven't been cleaned properly, food that's been left in containers for weeks, and then that's getting served to people. It's mind-boggling. But that and the fact you have people who invest their entire life savings into buying a restaurant, and they've never run a restaurant before in their life, but they want to do it in retirement. It just, like I said, the mind boggles. But like I said, it's my switch off television at the moment. So I'm enjoying going down that particular rabbit hole, and I don't mind a Scotsman getting away with saying F and C and all the rest of it and getting away with it. So even though he is obviously kicks the other foot for them, but it's entertaining. And on that note, we'll be back next week. So we're on the countdown. 5 shows to go, because I think one of the games is midweek, isn't it? So 5, maybe 6 shows to go. Don't know. Anyway, we'll be back.
Yeah, 6 shows, I reckon. So 5 games in the cup final.
As who's the stitch is saying, El Tonio, bedtime, your bedtime awaits. Yes, I am knackered and I am ready to have a shower and go to bed because I am very tired. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been great. I say we'll be back covering Dundee United. Hopefully it will be big party celebrations next week. So get your champagne, get it on ice. And hopefully we will be celebrating live with you next week. But until such times, all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.